So picture this. A new, life-changing medicine gets created in a lab. But how in the world does it actually get from that lab in, say, Europe to a pharmacy shelf here in another country? Well, today, we're going to map out that incredibly complex journey that turns a scientific breakthrough into a global reality.
And that's a really good question, right? You hear about some amazing new therapy, but what actually happens next? It's not nearly as simple as just packing it in a box and shipping it over. In this explainer, we're going to unpack the hidden world of rules, regulations, and approvals that stand in the way.
Okay, so let's set the stage for this. We've got this major pharmaceutical company based in Europe. They've developed a fantastic, totally market-ready therapy for dermatology, and they want to launch it in India to help patients there. Simple enough, right? Well, here's the thing. This wasn't just about selling a product. It was a huge compliance challenge. To get their medicine to the people who really need it, they first had to understand every single tiny step of India's approval process. And believe me, this is where things start to get complicated. The best way to think about this is like a giant, super complex maze. Before this company can get its medicine to patients, it has to navigate this winding, twisting obstacle course of regulations. And one wrong turn, it could mean hitting a dead end.
And at the center of any good maze, there's always a gatekeeper, right? Well, in India, that gatekeeper is the Central Drugs Standard Control Organization, or as it's better known, the CDSCO. They hold all the keys.
Now, what the CDSCO does is absolutely critical. They're the national authority in charge of making sure any drug, whether it's made in India or brought in from somewhere else, is safe, that it actually works, and that it's high quality. Getting their approval is the essential green light. Without it, you go nowhere.
And this is where that maze starts to feel really, really real. The company was facing this huge wall of questions. It's like, okay, what paperwork do we actually need? Do we have to run a whole new clinical trial just for India? How do we even get a license to import the drug? And what happens after it's approved? Each one of these questions was a potential roadblock.
Okay, let's dive into this. So how do you solve a maze like that? You don't just run in blind, right? No, you create a map. And that's exactly what had to happen next. A really methodical, step-by-step investigation to chart the course. So this is how they started drawing that map. First up, a really deep dive into all the existing rules and guidelines. Next, they looked at all the different ways you could even submit an application. Then, a super crucial step, figuring out if local clinical trials were an absolute must, or if maybe, just maybe, they could get a waiver. After that, they mapped out the exact process for getting import licenses. And finally, they looked beyond the approval date to figure out the long-term safety reporting rules. Each step was like adding a new piece to the puzzle, making the big picture clearer and clearer. And all of this detective work, it led to a huge aha moment. That confusing, intimidating maze was completely transformed into a clear, actionable roadmap. Suddenly, the path forward wasn't just possible, it was visible. Just look at this transformation. The maze of unknowns became a complete end-to-end plan. That uncertainty about what documents to bring, gone, replaced with a perfect, structured checklist. Those vague timelines became a clear workflow with milestones you could actually track. And most importantly, that huge risk of failing was pretty much eliminated by identifying every single prerequisite ahead of time. Now that is the power of having a good roadmap. And this right here is the real takeaway. The company wasn't just handed a to-do list, they were empowered. Just as the source material says, they gained a complete understanding. This meant they could prepare a submission that wasn't just by-the-book compliant, but was also strategically smart. Okay, so let's pull the camera back for a second, because this story isn't just about one company or one drug. This whole detailed process has much, much bigger implications for global health and for all of us as patients. So here's the big why behind all this complexity. This regulatory maze exists for a very good reason, to protect public health. It's a system of checks and balances designed to make absolutely sure that any medicine you take, no matter where in the world it was made, has been rigorously checked and double-checked to be safe and effective for you. And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. We've just walked through the massive effort it takes for one single therapy to enter one new country. So what does that tell us about the much bigger challenge of making sure that everyone, everywhere, has access to the best medicines the world has to offer? It's a huge puzzle for sure, but as we've seen, understanding the roadmap is always the first step. Thanks for tuning in.